Welcome to our Breaking It Down series on intent data. My name is Dennis Oljai, Vice President of Product Marketing. I'm joined by Mike Burton at Bombora, co-founder of Bombora. So our third series, we'll talk a little bit about how is intent data collected and is it safe to use given privacy restrictions such as GDPR or CCPA. I know that at a high level, Mike, right, there are three main components to intent data collection, right? So when our audience is out there looking for intent data providers, they're probably granted with lots of different choices, right, that they need to vet. Primarily, intent data is sourced from bid stream data, so data that's collected from ad exchanges, standalone publishers, right, your CNNs, your TechCrunches, your Washington Post, those kinds of sites. And also data co-ops, right? So those are the three primary categories, and hopefully you can maybe elaborate a little bit and educate our audience on what those mean and what types of signals are typically collected to curate an intent data set.
Yeah, we keep it simple. There's probably some nuances across the three categories, and you could break out a couple more if you wanted to, but largely that's how we break them out into those three broad buckets. Typically, the standalone publisher, you can think of it as really high quality, really high compliance, and typically the flaw is just not as much scale or volume, difficult to fuel an entire go-to-market with the standalone publisher data. But if you have the wherewithal to combine it with other data sources, it's really, really high quality, right? So that some great examples would be, peer review sites like G2 Crowd, standalone technology publishers like TechTarget. The compliance is very high because they own that customer experience. They own the user experience. So users are opting into their terms and conditions, whether that's opting into their third-party cookie or whether it's, a registration path for known users. So it's really kind of clean from a compliance perspective, and the quality's high, right? If you're a peer review site or you're a really rich publisher like TechTarget, there's going to be some good intent signals there. Like I said before, it's just the scale. You can't feed a large sales team with just what's happening on an individual publisher. Just you would, they'd be starving for more signal. The data co-op is the Bombora model. So we run this big cooperative. We have one-to-one relationships with lots and lots of business media companies. We like this model because it's lots of scale. It provides a proxy for the B2B research web. You get a really good sample of what companies are interested in. And because we have the one-to-one relationships with the publishers, we also get the benefit of consent, right? We're right there. We're in the registration path. We're in the user path. So any user that opts in on that publisher, we get to also store consent on that user. And then there's this source called the bid stream. This is, think of it as data exhaust that comes from all of the ads that are auctioned off across the internet, right? So an impression comes up for bid, there's thousands of marketers bidding for that impression, and there's this metadata that flies off of that auction process, like an IP address, which could be used to resolve to a company, and a URL, where you can go and figure out a little bit of the content on that page. So the scale is very high. It's a lot of the internet is powered by auction of advertising. The quality, in our opinion, tends to be a little bit lower because it's only sites that auction off their advertising, right? You're missing the white paper downloads, the webinar signups, the really rich niche B2B publishers that don't auction off their ads. So it's a much broader content type when compared to like really hardcore B2B research, but it's a lot of volume. The compliance around it depends who you ask, to be honest. There's no direct one-to-one relationship with the end user. So we're definitely not collecting consent directly. There's no relationship with the publisher. So the publisher isn't giving permission for this data to flow for this particular use case. However, some may argue that it's, contractually, it's something that is able to flow down to an end customer. So I wouldn't rely on me for legal advice around the bid stream, but those are some of the things to think about.
I think that's a great overview, Mike, right? I think, again, trying to use an analogy here and walk it back to something simple, it's very much like, for instance, I was buying a car, right? Where would I go to research for that car, right? I would look at reviews. You mentioned peer review sites. I would go to select publishers, Kelley Blue Book, potentially, right? And some other publications like that are authoritative around that subject or that product to research and learn more about it, right? So intent providers that are using those sources and curating signals from those sources are going to yield the most high quality and to your point, the scale as well, right? So it's all related to who's actively engaged in the buyer journey and where are your buyers searching. So that makes the most sense for you to work with an intent provider that potentially is sourcing those signals from the publishers that you care about, right? Or where your audiences might be. Ultimately, you have to follow your audience, right? If you want to reach them. And intent data is a great way to do that.
100%. That's a great way to think of it. It's just, if you're considering intent data, ask that question. Are the companies that I care about, does this intent provider are they able to track the content that they're reading? And right, you should be able to answer that definitively. And if you can, then it's a good source of intent data. It's going to help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for that one. That wraps up our third series on breaking it down, intent data. Looking forward to talking with you on the next one. Thank you, everyone.